Hi folks, this is Karim Raouf from the IT Visualizer channel. Today we will continue our lab, the Star Trek lab. This is the video number 23. We have been discussing in the previous video the following. We have been discussing that we will configure a second DFS naming server, as we have seen here in this graph. Just a moment. Here we will have a second file server and the second DFS naming space. What is the DFS naming space? We have said before the DFS naming space, it is like a pointer, okay, that points to the folders on the file servers or different file servers. For here, for example, we will add a second DFS. It will be pointing to folders on the first file server, and if the first file server is down, then it can point to the folders on the second file server. And we all know that there is a replication between the two file servers, so all of the data on both servers are identical and updated to the last second, okay. And when we configure this DFS naming server, we have created two domain or DFS domain namespace. So these two DFS domain namespace will point to different folders on the second file server, okay. And you can configure the both domain namespacing to point to folders on the first file server. This is your choice to do, but here I am configuring my second DFS naming server, and I have configured two domain namespaces, okay, to point to different folders on my second file server. How I can explain this? Remember here that we have in our previous videos, I have created a domain namespace called startrek.local depths. This is a domain namespace that will point to all ships folders or all ships subfolders, okay. Everyone will point to a folder, okay. And then we have created another domain namespace that called startrek.local Columbia ship shares, that will point to folders in or subfolders in the Columbia NX02 folder, and they contain the same subfolders as all ships. So we have two domain namespaces that were created before on the first DFS naming server. So in the second DFS naming server, I have created two domain namespace. One is called startrek.local departments backup, okay. This backup will point to all ships folder on the second file server, and I have created a startrek.local Columbia ship shares backup, and this will point to Columbia folder which contain the subfolders on the second file server. So both domain namespace will point to different folders on the second file server, which are identical to the folders on the first file server. So we have done this in the previous video, and then we have configured ntfs permissions on the folders on the second file server. So we all know that after configuring the domain namespace and adding different folders that point to folders on the file server, this we have done on the first file server, we need to do this. After doing this, we need to give permissions on the folders on the file on the folders on the file server and on the folders in the DFS namespace. So after configuring the DFS namespace, you need to put on every folder in DFS namespace permissions, which group will access this folder on the DFS, and you need to put permissions on the folder it is pointing to. You need to put permissions which group will access it. So you need to have two permissions: one, who will access the folder on the DFS domain namespace, and who will access the folder that the DFS is pointing to. So you need, for example, here we have high level folder that points to high level ID folder on the all ships folder. This will be accessed by the Starcom high level group. So this is an NTFS permission. This is one of them, and we have authenticated users will access this folder based on the SMB permissions. And here, for example, this is the IT folder. We have a folder in our DFS naming space or domain namespace. It's pointing to the IT folder. Here we have the IT Starcom IT group have read permissions on this folder in the domain namespace, and on the file server the folder here that starcom have modify on it. So we need to do this for the folders on the second file server. We have done this for the folders on the first file server, so we need to do this on the folders on the second file server to add ntfs permissions. We have done this on the second file server folders, and then we need to access the network connection setting for the 8 network cards on the first domain controller and the second domain controller to add the secondary DNS server IP addresses in the alternative DNS field. Remember what we have done. We have created a virtual machine. This virtual machine will act as an additional domain controller, DHCP failover, and a second file server and second DFS name server. So this additional domain controller will act also as a DNS. So we need to add this additional DNS in the network connection setting for the first domain controller, and the opposite, we need to add the DNS for the primary domain controller. This is a primary domain controller and DNS. We need to add the DNS of the primary domain controller to the network connection setting in the second domain controller. Okay, we all know also that every one of them, or we all know that also each server of these domain controllers have 8 network cards, okay, with different IP addresses, IP version 4 and IP version 6. We all know that why we have 8 network cards, because this will act also as a DHCP, and we need the DHCP to distribute IP ranges for different subnets. So we have here 8 subnets. The DHCP will distribute IPs for these subnets. So we need to go to every network card on the first domain controller and the second domain controller and put in the alternative DNS setting or alternative DNS field, we need to put the DNS IP of each one of them. Okay, so we need to go to the 8 network cards on the first domain controller and add the DNS of the second domain controller in the setting of this server or network cards, and the opposite, we need to go to the second domain controller and add the DNS of the first domain controller in the network card setting. We have done this also in the previous video. So access the network card connection setting for the 8 network cards on the first domain controller and the second domain controller. So both has 8 network cards. We need to add the secondary DNS server IP address in the alternative DNS field. Okay, so we need to add the secondary DNS in the first domain controller network connection setting. This should be done, and then we need to configure also the scope options for the DHCP to distribute the secondary DNS for all of the workstations. So we all know in this video, okay, that the DHCP will distribute 8 subnets. Okay, so we need to inform, or the DHCP need to inform all of the workstations that they have 2 DNS servers. Okay, so we need to configure the scope options to distribute 2 DNS servers for each network card. So each network card or each subnet will have 2 DNSs. Okay, because each domain controller have 8 network cards. Okay, so this means that each subnet will have 2 DNS servers. Okay, and we need to configure the DHCP to do this, to distribute these 2 IP addresses for the 2 DNS servers. Okay, so we have done this also in the previous video, and in this video we will do something here. Remember that we have our classification or classification of files on the file server. We have classified files according to the location and department and the job title, okay, of the users in the Active Directory. Okay, here I will add more job titles in the classification of files, because I have a lot of job titles I didn't add. And then we will do other thing here. We will create a DAC rule. Remember, we have done something called a classification of files type called top secret. So we have tagged some files at top secret. We need to configure a DAC rule to to make certain Active Directory group to access the tag files tagged as or classified as top secret. So we'll do this in this video. So let's begin and see how this will be done. So we have stopped here the last time at this one. Just a moment. So here I will go to my Excel sheet that contains the users of the domain StarTrek.local, and I am revising the titles. Okay, so here I am revising the job titles because I need to add them in the classification file types. So I need to add some more titles. We need to open the Active Directory Administrative Center. Here you can see that sorry, you can see that we have a lot of titles. When we created the title in the Active Directory Administrative Center, or we have created the claim, we didn't add all of the job titles in it. Okay, so sorry guys, can you hold for a moment? So let's continue guys. Here this is the Excel sheet that contains all of my users in my StarTrek.local domain. So this is the titles. I am revising them because I need to add them to the classification file types, especially the title. Okay, so I need to add it, or I need to revise it and add it. So here there is a lot of titles, so I need to add them. Just a moment. So here guys, we will as I said before, I will add the titles. So I need to add them, okay, to the classification type file of title, or the attribute of the title. Okay, so I need, we can pass this real quickly here. So we will open the access, or we open the access control, we will open the Active Directory Administrative Center, and then we add the claim types, and then in the title we will add more titles because I didn't add much of them. So we need to add much more titles. Okay, so we'll add a lot of titles. So here we'll add a lot of titles. For example, we had added captain and colonel. Here we'll add commander, and we add senator, and we add candidate. Okay, so we will add more titles. So here again, I think I will revise again the titles, but we can go a little bit further or quickly. So here we will begin adding different titles, lieutenant commander for example, and here we're adding more titles. We'll add lieutenant for example, and then after adding these titles we need to import them, or import the newly added titles, okay, to the file server classification type title. Okay, so we'll do this now, but after adding them, of course. So we'll add a lot of titles. So I don't need to bother you all, I will just add them. So we have added all of them, we have a lot of titles. Then we need to refresh or update the title classification type on the file server with these new values. Okay, so here what we will do, here we will make a rule, or another new rule. This rule, we need a certain type of title, for example the admirals, we need them to access certain files or certain folders. So here we'll create another rule. We'll make a new rule, access rule. Okay, we go there. Sorry, we need to access them. Okay, just a moment, we will make a new rule. So here we'll make access rule, new central access rule, and then we tell him top secret admiral. So we need the admirals or the title of admirals to access top secret files or to access a folder we will create that's called top secret file. Okay, and then here we will add a condition. So here we will tell him we need the resource group, the title, okay, to be equals to, okay, vice admirals or admirals. Okay, so here this is the value. Okay, admiral. Here we have the vice admiral, not admiral. We have vice admiral. So we can go there a little bit further. Vice admiral. We need this title, okay, to access certain folder. Okay, so here we will tell him if this title is admiral, then give him full control over the file. Okay, so here this is the condition that he should have his Active Directory title, or his title in the Active Directory should be vice admiral. And if he has this, we'll give him a certain permission. Here we will tell him, or we will remove, or we will give the group of the vice admirals, because he is not the title. This title have a group in the Active Directory. So I have a group in Active Directory called Starcom admirals. Okay, so, or Starcom vice admirals. So if the user is having a title of vice admiral, so we will give the vice admirals group modify permissions on this folder or this file. Okay, so here now we will give the group of Starcom admirals. If he have the title of vice admirals, then we will give the whole group of the vice admirals, okay, full control or modify over the folder. Okay, so here, okay, then we need to go to the access policies. We need to add another one, okay, or we need to add it. Okay, we make another access central policy, because this is the one that will be published to the group policy, or the group policy will publish it, so we can use it as a rule to control accessing of the folder or the file. Okay, so here we will add it. Okay, and then okay, just a moment guys. So let's continue guys. Here we will make the rule, okay, and then we will publish this rule to the Active Directory or to the domain, and then we will apply this rule to a folder, okay, or a file. Okay, so now what you will do, we need to, just a moment, we need to, here we need to go to all ships. Okay, we will open it, and then we will make in the engineering folder, just a moment, here we will make another folder and put it in the engineering. We will make a folder and we will make it top secret. Okay, and we will put it in the engineering folder. Okay, so I will put it, I think I will cut it. Okay, just a moment. So we will cut it and put it in the engineering folder. Okay, so here we will apply this folder in the engineering. We know that the engineering group in the Active Directory have access to this folder. Okay, but we will make this folder a special one, so the engineering department will not be able to access this folder, because we will use the DAC rule that we have created a couple of seconds to make the admirals access this folder only. So the engineering group will not access this folder, even though they can access the whole folders, or they can access other folders, but here we will specify that only the admirals should access this folder. Okay, as I said, even though it is in the engineering folder and the engineering group has full access to this folder, but using DAC rule we will only specify the admirals to access this folder. Okay, so we will do this now, but we need before that to make something here. We need to open the PowerShell. We need to open the PowerShell and make the new titles that we have added in the Active Directory Administrative Center, the new titles to be replicated or to be published to the file server classification file type, which is the title. So now we will do this, and then we need to go to the group policy to add the rule, the DAC rule, or to publish the DAC rule, and then we can go to the folder and use this DAC rule. Okay, so now we have done this. If you go to the file server, we will see that the titles are added, but still here we need to do another thing. We need to go there and we need to open, or we need to do something here. Just a moment. So we need to go to the group policy and add the DAC rule. So we go there, and then we will add the DAC rule, starting with local and then the default domain policy, and then we need to add the other DAC rule. So here we will go to publish this rule in the Access Central policy. Here we have the doc policy. Before we will add the Admiral top secret, and then OK, and then we can go to the folder and then apply this rule. Okay, after that we need to first before applying the DAC rule on the folder, it will not appear unless we make an update or we make refresh for the group policy or false this group policy. Okay, so now we can go to the folder and apply the DAC rule. Okay, here you go, data cube, and then all ships engineering. We will go to the folder properties. Okay, and then we can go to the classification, to the security, advanced, central. Okay, just a moment, before applying the rule, okay, you need to go, just a moment. So here we will apply this rule to be central. Okay, so we'll have this rule applied. Okay, so here we have Admiral top secret, so it will be applied. So before that I need to tell you something here. If we need to go to the, if we have any folders, we need to tag the folder. So if we go there again, sorry guys, if you go there, we will have another thing. So we need to, after getting the engineering here, we have done this tagging. Okay, we need to do after that something else. So we need to go to the classification and choose the title on this folder, or tag this file with the classification type title to put admirals on it. Okay, and the department and so you need to put tags on this folder. Okay, after adding the rule. Okay, so this is, I think this is it, but I need to maybe do something or show you all this something here. Anyway, so this is the principle. No, so we need to go there and okay, not is it. Okay, just a moment. So I think this is the end of our series. Okay, so this is the end of our all series. Okay, hope this series was very informative for you all, and we will begin the upcoming video working with the Marvel Studio series or playlist. Hope this series was informative for you all, and I would like to thank you all for viewing. Thank you so much.